Welcome to Bunny Trails, a whimsical adventure of idioms and other turns of phrase. I'm Shauna Harrison.
And I'm Dan Pugh. Each week, we take an idiom or other turn of phrase and try to tell the story from its entry into the English language to how it's used today. Have you ever been in a situation where everything is riding on the outcome? Maybe it was during a sports event or a board game or even a real-life emergency, but you knew everything came down to how you managed this moment. And that is when you pull out all the stops. According to Oxford English Dictionary, to pull out all the stops means, quote, to make every possible effort, end quote. Now, Shauna, I wasn't sure where this phrase came from. My initial thought was about like trains and, how if you're trying to get somewhere, you pull out all the stop signs or whatever, you're just like pull out all of the stops from your path and so that you can just go straight to it,
Right, okay.
That was my initial thought. And then when I looked into this, that was not it at all.
Gotcha. It's like wanting to be able to like barrel through or whatever.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
kind of like that. Just kind of like pushing right on through, like pull out all the barriers and anything that'd be in the way and just going. But no,
Right.
That's not where it comes from. Do you know where this comes from?
The only other guess that I would have would be related to publication in some way or like telegrams,
Oh, like blah, 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 stop, blah, 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 stop.
Yeah,
I see.
But then I was like, I don't know why that would be a thing that
Sure.
someone would say. Like, but it's like, well, I don't know. You have something important. You need it to all fit into the.
Just pull out all the stops. We
Pull out
out a
all the
baby eats
stops.
a boy.
Yeah,
That's
Like,
a
I
joke
don't-
that will be funny to people who watched the Super Bowl in the 90s.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Super Bowl commercials, I should say.
But that didn't like really seem like it made sense. So
No,
I
you're
was
right.
like, I don't know why that would be a phrase.
It
but
is not that.
yeah.
You are correct. So it is. It appears this phrase originates with the pipe organ. So first, a little about pipe organs and stops from Pipe Dreams, the nationally distributed weekly radio program exploring the art of the pipe organ. Quote, simply stated, the pipe organ is a big box of whistles. Each pipe sits on top of a hollow wind chest that is filled with compressed air provided by a bellows or a blower. Each stop at the organ console represents a set of pipes, called a rank, of a particular tone color, with a different pipe for every note on the keyboard. Pulling the stop activates a slider under that specific set of pipes on the wind chest, making them available as a sound source, end quote. So basically, the stops block the air from getting into the pipe, and to pull out the stop is to allow the air to get through, thus making a sound. So if an organist pulls out all of the stops, it allows all of the pipes to be used, resulting in a booming, unfiltered sound, leaving nothing left to be given at that moment. Now, we'll look at more about the history of the pipe organ with interesting and curious facts, like how Nero couldn't have fiddled while Rome burned because the violin hadn't been invented yet, but he did play the hydraulis, an early pipe organ. And what a creepy thought to hear like ominous sounds of an organ playing while your city burned. That would be absolutely wild. Now, Nero also played the lute before you get too far down that rabbit hole, though scholars don't think he was actually playing anything when Rome
Can
burned.
you imagine? He's like, just like troubadouring around.
Right? He's just like with this ginormous pipe organ.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, you're going to get more things like that and more about the actual pipe organ in our behind the scenes video, which airs every Friday on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod. But for now, we're going to look at the phrase, and here's an example of it being used in a literal sense. This comes from an article in the Kentish Gazette out of England, and it's dated 13 December 1842. The organist in question is not named in the article. It seems as though anyone of the day probably would have known who the article was talking about, which I'm sure was fine in 1842, but it isn't helping us some 175 years later. Quote, the people run to hear his performance, and as decorum forbids those demonstrations of applause in the church which are common at a play or a concert, the Parisians have invented a new method of signifying their approbation. They cough with all their might. And it is the greatest honor for the organist if he be coughed at by the whole congregation. To obtain this distinction, he exerts all his talents and pulls out all of the stops of the original so that during the Te Deum, the assembly is entertained with a variety of charming sounds. End quote.
That's Hilarious.
Yeah, it took a weird turn, right? Coughing? This feels like a decorum gone wild, I think. But I guess coughing is forcing air through a pipe, so maybe it's an appropriate approbation, as he called
Ah.
it. Maybe it is an
Oh,
appropriate form of
goodness.
flattery. I don't know.
Hmm.
But we see the phrase being used in its pre-idiomatic form here, where the pipe organist wows the crowd with the booming, unfiltered sounds of all of the stops being pulled out while playing.
Okay.
So that's an example of how the phrase was used in its literal sense. And that was one example from 1842. If we want to move to the figurative usage, which is what we're talking about here, then I want to read this piece from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Quote, "The British poet and critic Matthew Arnold is believed to be the first to use some form of pull out the stops with a figurative application, comparing the potential of his countryman to a narrow-toned organ on which one is performing." End quote. So we're going to look at that quote. It's from Essays in Criticism, first and second series complete by Matthew Arnold, and it's dated 1865. The piece is available through the digitization work of Project Gutenberg. Quote, "Proud as I am of my connection with the University of Oxford, I can truly say that knowing how unpopular a task one is undertaking when one tries to pull out a few more stops in that powerful but at present somewhat narrow-toned organ, the modern Englishman, I have always sought to stand by myself and to compromise others as little as possible." End quote. So this is an interesting take in which he notes the modern Englishman, at least in 1865, was reserved in many ways, as he himself tries not to impose on others, so his fellow countrymen do as well. And in this case, trying to get them to go all out, even at the expense of others, was simply not part of the British makeup at the time. Here's a usage of it from 1879, actually April 13th of 1879. That is delivered in a sermon by C.H. Spurgeon at the Metropolitan Tabernacle in London. It captures that same British makeup that Mr. Arnold was commenting on just a decade earlier. Quote, "Your soul says speak, and if etiquette says hush, they will think you a fanatic. Regard it not, but speak aloud, and let them think you are a fanatic if they please. Sir, play the organ very softly when the subject is your own praise. But when you come to the praises of God, pull out all the stops. Thunders of music are all too little for his infinite deservings." End quote.
Okay.
So we can clearly see that in both cases here, pulling out all the stops is being referenced specifically with a metaphor to an organ. And they are saying that it's a metaphor to an organ. And this just lends more credit to the fact that it was during this time frame, the 1860s and 1870s, when it really started to take hold and be used and move from a literal phrase about the actual pulling out all the stops to a figurative one. But they still felt the need to say playing the organ or that narrow-tuned organ, right? So they still felt the need to specify, like you would pull out the stops from an organ, you can pull out the stops in this situation.
Right.
And I think that's very interesting. This next one is a book review of The Rose of Joy by Mary Findlater, and it was released in 1903, the book. The review was printed in the Literary Digest, which was dated December 19th, 1903, and the author of the review is not mentioned. Quote, "In only one place does she let go of herself, and the passage proves that the author knows how to pull out all the stops when art demands a blare of emotional accent." End quote. So in this one,
Okay.
pull out all the stops is in quotations. And I wonder if that's because it's not being used with an organ in any way. And so it's being used all completely on its own. And so they want the reader to know that they're using a idiomatic expression.
Right.
Because they also do that for let go of herself as a figurative expression where they also use quotations for that.
I really, I do like that one because it's like pulling in different aspects of it, and it's like talking about, this blare of emotional accent. So it's like also just clearly putting it in the place of like a concept and not at all something tangible.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, yeah. This next one is from a sports writer named Henry McLemore, It was published in the Washington Daily News out of Washington, D.C., USA, July 22nd, 1938. Now, the author, Henry McLemore, is frustrated at Lou Gehrig's run of baseball games that earned him the nickname the Iron Horse. At the time, Gehrig was up to 2,045 straight games without missing one. His record would end at 2,130 games and would stand for 56 years until Cal Ripken Jr. surpassed it in 1995. The criticism was probably less contentious at the time, though the lens of history has showed us that Gehrig died at the age of 37, very young, of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, often shortened to ALS, and is sometimes known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Which means the criticism hits a little different from our knowledge today than it would have from McLemore writing it at the time.
Right.
Here's an excerpt from the column. Quote, "To come right out and say so, I consider Gehrig's insistence on playing even when he has fractured bones, such as he has now, concussions, fever, and the all-around miseries, as abnormal and none too flattering. Usually it is the dumb or desperate who continue to carry on while in pain. The human thing to do when you're hurt is to take it easy, not pull out all the stops marked heroic. This is especially true when all your heroics will get you is a gold watch and the sobriquet Iron Horse." End quote. So, a couple of thoughts. First, a sobriquet, which I had to look up, is an affectionate or humorous nickname. I figured that based on the context clues, but I was like, you know what? I don't know that I've ever actually looked up the definition of that word. So now, on the whole, I think I agree with Henry McLemore here, but my opinion is not relevant as whether someone plays through pain to cement their name in history, right? So if you had a crystal ball to predict your future, I think many people might do something to have their name live on in perpetuity for something they did through their own perseverance, right? And I understand and empathize with Mr. McLemore for me personally, but I wouldn't deign to judge Lou Gehrig for his decisions in pulling out all the stops for the sport and job that he loved, especially knowing that he would die at a very young age. And, his baseball career and the disease he had are what he is predominantly known for.
Yeah.
All right, next up is an example from the Argus, which is out of Melbourne, Australia, and is dated June 6th, 1955. This is about the Australian football rules team Moorabbin Football Club, which ran from 1909 to 1963. There was another more popular club of the same name that ran from 1907 to 1987, but that's a different iteration than this team. So for anyone from Australia who's like, no, hang on a second, we're talking about the 1909 to 1963 version. So in this article, the Kangas, shortened for kangaroos, were playing a team they definitely should have beat, but they were struggling. So here's the line, quote, "Moorabbin, apparently relaxing after 4 hard games, had to pull out all the stops to avert a shock defeat by second last Chamberwell." End quote. I would imagine we've probably all seen this type of example in sport where a team that is objectively better is struggling against a team that is objectively worse. And so it was with the Kangas, who had to really remove all the barriers and leave nothing left in the tank to defeat this not very good Chamberwell team.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at one more before we head to the break. This next one is an article in the Evening Star out of Washington, D.C., USA. It's by Josephine Gitchner, and is talking about the difficulty of selling her house while her daughter has come down with the mumps. This is from 1961. Quote, "The pressure was on us. In just 30 days, we had to settle on our new home and still no buyer for the old one. We were about to pull out all the stops for the final, no offer refused open house Sunday when Diane chose to puff out under the ears." End quote. So Josephine did the right thing in my view and notified the realtors about her daughter's condition so that they could make their own choices about whether they showed up at a house where someone had the mumps. One older lady did show up to visit the kid and ended up buying the house during the open house. But her use of the phrase, in this case, the pulling out all the stops, is consistent with the idea of removing barriers or going all out or making sure they did everything they could to make something happen. As she said, pull out all the stops for the final, no offer refused open house Sunday.
Right.
All right, so up next, we'll have several modern uses to cover, and we'll get to those right after we say thank you to those who make this show possible.
This episode is brought to you by our amazing patrons on Patreon, and it is 100% free to join the Bunny Trails community. So give our weekly discussions and poll questions a try. And if you love the content and want more of it, we have some paid tiers too if you have a few dollars to spare each month and want to support the show.
We have new things every weekday on the feeds. In addition to the conversation about what movies, shows, books, and podcasts everyone is enjoying, and our weekly poll questions, we also have early access to the week's podcast, all the links, books, songs, and other content mentioned in the week's episode, and our lightly edited behind the scenes video featuring all of the cut content, goofs, and bonus facts that didn't make it into the podcast feed.
We've also got original digital artwork every month made by me and direct access to talk with us. No nefarious social media algorithms getting in the way of what we see or don't see. Plus, you can get awesome name recognition like Pat Rowe and JGP do every episode. And our top spot is currently occupied by the amazing Mary Halsey Lopez. You can join the Bunny Trails community for free at Bunny Trails Pod on Patreon. That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
We'll start in 1972 with the album Pull Out All the Stops by the band It Flew Away. The Australian band performed psychedelic and progressive rock. I listened to the last song on the album, Pull Out All the Stops, Mother. It was over 15 minutes long and was more like a psychedelic thriller movie soundtrack than a releasable song. There were a few words in the middle of the track, but most of it was instrumental with some vocalizations during parts of the song. So if that appeals to you, you should check them out. Pulling Out All the Stops, The Pipe Organ in America is a 1996 documentary featuring the rise of the pipe organ in American history. The full movie is available on YouTube. Here's the synopsis from there. Quote, Pulling Out All the Stops honors the pipe organ in America. From New York's Fifth Avenue to Harlem, from Hollywood to a small town in North Carolina. This film shows how the pipe organ plays a role in people's lives today. Special highlights include a Halloween concert, an evening of silent film comedy brought to life with the mighty Wurlitzer, the moving story of a congregation's 9-year dream, and the factory that made a dream come true, and a special tour for young people inside a 3-story tall organ. Most of all, Pulling Out All the Stops celebrates the widely differing communities of people who love and cherish this instrument. End quote. So this really captures how the rise of the pipe organ used all of its abilities at its disposal to become one of the most iconic instruments in sacred institutions, from weddings to funerals and many religious events in between.
This is like fascinating. I know that there is a group of people, that are going to be interested in any topic and really passionate about it. And this is just one that I hadn't really thought about before.
Pipe organs?
Yeah, pipe organs. But I kind of love it. Like,
yeah, I mean, it does feel like a sort of a niche thing, but there are a lot of examples. I mean, there's the nationally syndicated radio show Pipe Dreams that we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really interesting to me.
Anyway, because there's a lot of history. I think that would pull a lot of people into it,
Well, yeah, so. And I mean, pipe music is beautiful. Like pipe organ music is just absolutely really beautiful. Cool. A good organist can do so much with it,
Yeah.
Well, Pull Out All the Stops is a 2011 novel by Geraldine McCaffrey, and it is the second in the Sissy Sissony series. Here's the synopsis from the publisher. Quote, There isn't much drama in Olive Town. The highlights of Sissy Sissony's days are the letters from her old school teacher, Miss Lucian, describing her adventures on board an old showboat with the Bright Lights Theater Company. If only life were full of such adventure for Sissy, too. But then diphtheria breaks out in Olive Town, a silo crushes Sissy's home, and Miss May March agrees to take Sissy and classmates Cookie and Tibby to stay with Miss Lucian until Olive Town is safe again. The ramshackle crew on board the Sunshine Queen sail along the shoals and shimmer of the Numchuck River, performing plays for the town scattered along the shore. But sometimes on the treacherous Missouri River, danger levels rise too high, even for the resourceful Bright Lights. Then only the bravest and grandest in the land can hope to keep the final curtain from falling. The award-winning author Geraldine McCaffrin captures the spirit of adventure and the power of imagination in this rip-roaring read. End quote. I swear whoever wrote that was like, I dare you to read this out loud.
Right. Like that's so much going on in there.
Yeah, I just the S's, sissy, sissony series, you know, that sound,
Yeah.
and rip roaring reads, and I was just like, oh my goodness, wow. Huh. Anyway, I mean, it sounds like a fun book. It's obviously a juvenile book, but
I I
some of those
love
sometimes those are really fun to read.
I love the creativity that some people have for like children's writing where they like just naming some Sunshine Queen and Olive Town and
Right?
stuff like that.
Numchuck
It's like
River.
I love that so much just, that an adult has that, ability to give things kid type names. I love it.
Yeah. Pull Out All the Stops is a single by The Night off the 2018 album Question Everything. The Night is a self-described as an indie post-punk folk rock pop band from Sydney, Australia. If you're a fan of Arcade Fire, Bright Eyes, The Killers, Kings of Leon, Brand New, or Manchester Orchestra, then you might like The Night. Here are some of the lyrics. Quote, pull out all the stops. Make sure every shot counts. You always wanted fame, so take it by the reins now. End quote. This is actually, I kind of liked the song. It was a very interesting take, and the music video features people doing paintball. So I thought it was really interesting. There's a lot of times when you hear the lyrics of a song and you're like, oh, this is really interesting. And then you see the music video and you're like, well, that's drastically different than what I had
Like that's
imagined in
not
my
what I
head,
was
you know?
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pull Out All the Stops, UN Urges the World to Fight Virus, is the headline title of an article from sfgate.com by Matt Sadinsky and John Leicester. It was published on March 5th of 2020, which was just a week or two before the United States started shutting things down. Here is the excerpt that led to the title. Quote, this is not a drill. This is not the time for giving up. This is not a time for excuses. This is a time for pulling out all the stops, World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said at a daily briefing in Geneva. Countries have been planning for scenarios like this for decades. Now is the time to act on those plans. End quote. So this is a great usage of the phrase because the World Health Organization is making the case that this new pandemic is a serious threat, and we should use all of our resources or pull out all the stops to try to stop the spread of COVID-19.
Right.
Now, obviously, in hindsight, a while later, you can look back and say some countries probably did better at using all of their resources than other countries did. But those are value judgments. Every country's cultures are going to make different decisions, and it is just rare that anyone makes decisions based solely on science, right? It's going to have to be a mixture of science and culture, which
Right.
makes it a values decision, and every country did it differently, right, wrong, or otherwise. Pull Out the Stops by Camino is an alt-rock song released in 2024. According to their Facebook page, Camino is a band from Essex, United Kingdom. Here are the opening lyrics, quote, sleep tight, but in the night I can never dream. Outside, outsiders too. Ride on this serpentine, leap of faith is all we need. I might be tired, I might be mindful of you. Now we found the thing that I can't do. Pull out all the stops. Pull out all the stops. I'm right here where I want to be when it drops. End quote. I also kind of liked this band. The voice was a little bit higher pitched than I had expected, as is this next one. But I liked it a lot. I just sometimes have trouble hearing higher pitched voices and differentiating them from the music due to my particular form of hearing loss. But so it was. I thought it was really interesting to listen to. I really liked the beat of it. This next one was the same. This is Pulling Out All the Stops by Liam Huser, and it's a song released in 2025. Although he posted an early version of this song on YouTube in 2023. We'll link to both the early version and the studio version. The song has a bit of a bluesy classic rock vibe, and I really enjoyed it. I'll read from some of the lyrics, which sees the protagonist heading down Main Street. Quote, "It's 3:30. If I had it my way, I wouldn't have to pay a fee. If she want to see me while I'm not hard to reach, then you ought to know I'm pulling all the stops." End quote.
So this one I had listened to and ahead of time, and I really enjoyed this one. Actually, I felt like it had a good beat and rhythm. The chorus is like catchy and everything. Like I would think I listened to it one time through, and I was already kind of like with the chorus. By the end, I was like, oh yeah, it's like where you feel like you already know the song a little bit. So
Yeah,
it was good.
the style is very that bluesy classic rock. A little
Hmm.
bit of country folk, a little bit of rock and roll. It's really the kinds of things you would have got from bands in the late '70s, early '80s.
Yeah,
So just I really enjoyed the style of music.
yeah, it was good.
Well, I love the idea of going all in and making every possible effort to make something happen. And I love music. So learning that pull out all the stops came from a musical background was really cool. I don't think I use the term very often, but maybe I should get it in my rotation for when I'm trying my darndest to make something happen. And I'm curious how many of you use this phrase day to day, so let us know on Patreon. That's about all we have for today. If you have any thoughts on the show or pop culture references we should have included, reach out to us on Patreon, patreon.com/bunnytrailspod, or comment on our website, bunnytrailspod.com.
It's poll time. Recently, we asked our patrons, where do you put your dirty laundry? The vast majority of you put it in a hamper in the bathroom or bedroom, but a small percentage of you said either they are really spread out all over the house wherever I took them off and I have to go gather them to do laundry, or in a pile on the floor in my bedroom bathroom.
Heathens. Just heathens.
I'm the heathen.
I know you are.
Heather said, quote, just a regular old hamper. I was considering getting one on wheels because of mobility issues, but geez, those are expensive. And then I found a thing called a laundry turtle. You put it on top of the things in the dryer once they're dry, obviously. Spin the drum so that the clothes land on top of it. And then it basically becomes a mobile hamper where you can take everything out in one go. And yes, I did get overly excited about it, such that I'm telling everyone I can think of, up to and including podcast audiences. It's the little things in life. End quote.
That is amazing. That sounds great. I mean, that does sound awesome. And Heather, I totally understand why you would get excited about it because that is super cool.
My favorite thing is that it's called a laundry turtle. I mean, most, like, that's so
I
good.
imagine it looks like a little turtle.
It's just like a
They're
little
dry and you just
shell.
put it on top and then rotate the thing.
Amazing.
That is great.
Dustin added, quote, just got a new hamper for the bedroom. Geez, is that what it is like to be an adult? End quote.
Yeah, yes, it is. I think I realized I was an adult when I dropped a piece of ice on the floor in the kitchen, and I had the thought, if I don't pick that up, it might melt and cause damage to my floor because we had just installed the floor, right? And so I picked it up. And then as I tossed it in the sink, I suddenly thought exactly what Dustin was thinking. Is this what it feels like to be an adult? Oh no, I'm an adult now. Ah! But back to the question. I have a hamper in my bedroom. It's actually a laundry basket. And I put all my dirty clothes in there so they stay in one select location. And then I can take the laundry basket that I use as a hamper to the laundry, and everything is well organized because my laundry is not on the same floor as where I live. So I have to go to a different floor to do my laundry. So anyway, even when I stay in hotels, I keep my dirty clothes in a laundry bag so the room stays clean. I wouldn't say that I'm a clean freak or anyone. Anyone who's ever known me or been to my house would not call me a clean freak. But I certainly dislike clutter, and clothes are that thing for me that really tend to clutter things up and make things feel just, I don't know, just like there's just so I don't know why. Everybody's got their thing, and that's my weird thing. Is just like the clothes just make me feel like everything's super cluttery. So
Yeah.
I'm just very particular about making sure that my clothes all get in this one spot so that I don't have to go searching for them, and then I wash them and bring them back up and fold them and put them away.
Yeah. Okay, so I will say, like, first of all, most of my clothes are clean all the time. They just kind of live in spaces that maybe aren't the closet.
Yeah, your style is some people might call them piles of clothes, but I think you might call them like a gaming cache. It's like this is my hot bar. I can quick grab, the shirt or the
Yeah,
bra or the whatever I
it's like
need.
that. Yeah. So, but most of my dirty clothes go into my laundry bin or like in a pile on my bed. Like there's just usually like one load of laundry at a time that's dirty. Um, anyway, I'm not great at the organization on this
Which
whole
is weird
thing.
because you're such an
I
organization freak in so many
am.
other ways.
This is the thing. If clothing didn't matter so much to everyone, I'd be in like jeans and a sweater or a sundress every day, and then I wouldn't need most of the clothes I own. And I
Yeah,
just
it's fair.
there's too many things, and it just gets overwhelming. And it's like, why would I waste my time
Yeah.
organizing these? Well, if you want to take part in our silly polls, head over to the Patreon. We'd love to hear your take on our weekly poll questions, and it's free at patreon.com/bunnytrailspod. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week. Until then, remember,
Words belong to their users.